people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. What is Oscar De La Hoya's continued obsession with all things Canelo Alvarez, forecasting doom and gloom for Canelo's upcoming pay-per-view this weekend, saying, I'm the pay-per-view king. Canelo versus Berlanga fight will not exceed 100,000 homes. Nobody is paying $90 for this snooze fest. Just speaking the facts as always. The fact is, he hates Canelo Alvarez so much, he's actually telling boxing fans to skip the boxing match and watch the MMA show instead. That's not going to work. But that is how much he hates Canelo Alvarez, hates him for leaving Golden Boy Promotions. It's hard to say that Golden Boy as a company has fully recovered since then, even though it's been 4 going on 5 years. Golden Boy Promotions has survived 1 or 2 critical blows over the years. Yeah. Al Heyman funneling all of those fighters to what became his PBC. Golden Boy survived that. And in more recent years, Golden Boy survived. They did. Survived Canelo Alvarez's departure from the company. They survived it, but it hasn't really been the same for them. Canelo Alvarez, for a long time, gave them a lot of bargaining power. He was a major bargaining chip for them when they first jumped into bed with DAZN. We've got Ryan Garcia now, but Ryan Garcia doesn't have the stability or ability to fill Canelo Alvarez's shoes. He doesn't. And he doesn't really seem to get along with Oscar any more than Canelo Alvarez gets along with Oscar. That if Ryan had it his way, he might go somewhere else or he might enter free agency. That if he weren't under contract with Golden Boy, they wouldn't have any stars, any big names. They have a few decent fighters, a champion in Zerto, an unbeaten up-and-comer in Virgil Ortiz. But in terms of star power within the Golden Boy Promotions stable, they're greatly lacking that, and they would be even more if not for Ryan. Though, like I said, it's not like Ryan and Oscar are bosom buddies. Ryan doesn't really seem to get along with Oscar any more than Canelo Alvarez was getting along with Oscar. Oscar predicts this upcoming weekend's pay-per-view will do under 100,000 pay-per-view buys. I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all, because if history is any indicator of things to come, in previous instances, Canelo, all by himself, without a big-name opponent, has done anywhere in between 400 to 500,000 pay-per-view buys. That's without a big-name opponent. Edgar, being of Puerto Rican descent, may also help the effort along, the effort to sell this fight, that age-old Mexico versus Puerto Rico rivalry. We know that at times the Puerto Rican fans can be just as loyal as the Mexican ones, so Oscar's prediction of doom and gloom and pay-per-view sales being abysmal, that's just him being catty and trying to shade Canelo Alvarez. Edgar Berlanga himself caught wind of some of the things that Oscar De La Hoya has been saying, and as you can imagine, he was none too pleased to hear it. He said, how can a scumbag like Oscar hate on me and the event? You're somebody a lot of fighters looked up to. You're a fucking wanker. A hypocrite is more like it, because don't forget, for all the slack that Oscar is giving Canelo for fighting Edgar, Edgar is a fighter that Oscar was literally trying to sign. It wasn't that long ago. For all the flack that Oscar gives Canelo over who he's been fighting in his last couple of fights, in his last fight, he fought one of Oscar's fighters. So if you diminish his opponents, you're essentially diminishing one of your own fighters. What was one of Oscar's fighters? The story now is that Jaime Munguia is with Top Rank. Frankly, Oscar is too high most of the time to know how stupid he looks and how stupid he sounds. You can't hold him to his word, and you can't find a way to shame him when he's all hopped up on booger sugar, posting videos of himself in a Speedo. For all the time that he spends on Canelo, Canelo spends absolutely no time on Oscar. And maybe that's what burns him. You're the past. Stuck in the past. You're still mad that Canelo Alvarez left you? It's been 4 going on 5 years. Get over it. Move on. Find another Canelo Alvarez. Focus on your company. fighters leave promotional companies all the time. When Manny Pacquiao left Top Rank, who he had been for a very long time, and he had a lot of success there, when he left Top Rank for the PBC, you didn't see Bob throwing shade at that guy and attacking him the way that Oscar attacks Canelo. You're acting like a jilted ex-girlfriend. You're acting like a woman scorned. You can acknowledge that Oscar was a big draw in his heyday, and that he was a great boxer in his time that he was, but he's also an idiot. When he's doing this, he looks like a blithering idiot. Oh, you're forecasting doom and gloom for Canelo Alvarez's next pay-per-view like you were forecasting that Jaime Munguia would beat him. And that didn't happen, did it? This won't either, I don't think. No, I'm not a fan of the Edgar Berlanga fight. I'm not excited about it. But if history is any indicator of things to come, like I said, Canelo Alvarez is good for at least 4 to 500,000 pay-per-view buys all by himself without a big name. So that might be the neighborhood, the ballpark figure for this weekend's fight. And of course Oscar's not happy to hear it, that Canelo continues to succeed without him. Get over it. As far as Canelo Alvarez is making moves on his terms, saying, "I'm in no hurry." Believe him or not, Canelo Alvarez maintains that his career vision is more of an event-by-event analysis rather than a grand plan extending years into the future. Despite the angst that may cause others, the sport's most popular fighter has relied on his own reasons this year to wait out the possible future tasks of meeting unbeaten light heavyweights David Benavidez or Dimitri Bivol, and to instead turn towards a pair of 27-year-old super middleweight contenders whose combined knockout rate is just under 75%. In a recent interview with Boxing Scene, Alvarez, 34, was asked if he decided earlier this year to meet Mexican countryman Jaime Munguia in May and the unbeaten knockout artist with Puerto Rican roots, Edgar Berlanga, in September, to prove he could still handle young, strong fighters. And I guess that what Canelo would have me and you believe is that this is not preordained. I don't know what you're talking about with my age, Alvarez responded. I think I'm in my prime right now, and I've shown that in every single fight. I had an injury in my hand 2 years ago and was looking different, but you know, I've showed everybody I'm in my prime. I'm still young. I think for a lot of people it's hard to look at Canelo's career objectively. I think people live in extremes when it comes to a fighter like him. They're either too far on the right or too far on the left, where the truth is somewhere in the middle. Do I think he's in his prime? No, not at 34 years old, and not with well over 60 fights. I don't think he's in his prime anymore, but at the same time, Canelo exiting his prime is still better than a lot of other fighters. That Canelo out of his prime is still better than someone else's best. His quality of competition. People are complaining that he's fighting Edgar, but would they be complaining if it were David Benavidez fighting Edgar, or Jaime Munguia fighting Edgar, William Skull, Christian Mabili? Would they be complaining if it were those guys fighting Edgar? No. And you can apply that formula to Canelo's next opponent, Canelo's last opponent, run down the same itemized list of names and ask yourself, would anybody have had a problem with those guys fighting Jaime Munguia? No. What that tells me is his quality of competition as of late can't be that bad. You're just holding him to a different standard. You know, this is boxing, but you know, I am the best fighter in the world, so it's going to be difficult to do something like that with me, Alvarez said. That's why I take training seriously, because I'm not overlooking any opponent. I'm 100% focused on Berlanga. It's nothing new for me. I've been in there with all kinds of fighters, some difficult, some bigger than me. I am ready for anything. He feels he can make time to become ready for anything. Alvarez made it clear in his interview that he knows more about the light heavyweight talents than the new crop of super middleweights. I just go fight by fight right now. I'm 100% focused on Berlanga, and then I'll come to other opponents in the future. I just focus fight by fight, not future fights. Every single day I try to prove that I'm the very best. In training, in every single thing I do, to prove to myself that I'm the best. Might that mean he is succumbing to public pressure to seek a bout that removes him from the prohibited favorite role that he has enjoyed in this year's bouts? Alvarez insists he doesn't let the noise get to him. Not anymore. Maybe in the past, with fights like the Arislandi Lara fight, the Gennady Golovkin fight, as there was some pressure in those days for Canelo to face those fighters. But after over 60 fights, and having made as much money as he's made, the pressure isn't going to hit the same. Not anymore. You need to take all of that, absorb it, and let it go, Canelo said. I know who I am. I know what I've accomplished. I'm just the best. I know that. That's the only thing I care about. I hear everything. I grab it, I take it, and then I let it go. And then he makes a decision on his own terms. That's what people have a problem with. Alvarez emphasized that when discussing both the challenge of returning to light heavyweight and working with Saudi Arabia's power broker, Turkey Alalshikh, who has chided Alvarez's opponent's selection, the prospect of going after the undisputed light heavyweight title, Alvarez indicated he'll be watching who owns that claim following the October 12th undisputed bout pitting Bivol against unbeaten three-belt countryman Artur Beterbiev. You never know, Alvarez said. There's always a possibility. If Bivol wins that fight, I'd like to take that chance for a rematch. Working with Turkey Alalshikh is less than certain. I never say never, Alvarez said. We'll see. Who knows? Maybe in the future. If Dimitri Bivol beats Artur in October, and if after that Canelo chooses to run it back with him instead of fighting David Benavidez, I think that would go a long way towards silencing his critics, at least momentarily, because David Benavidez is not a better fighter, not a more proven fighter than Dimitri Bivol. And just imagine if he wins. He will be an undisputed champion, something David has never been. David's never unified a title, much less become an undisputed champion. So if Canelo Alvarez chooses to face him instead of David Benavidez, well, he's choosing to fight a better fighter, a more dangerous fighter that knows him and has beaten him before. You're gonna hold that against him? Some people don't believe he's gonna do it, is what it is. So we'll see. The main hang-up that people have with Canelo Alvarez now is that he does everything on his terms and he takes his time. He's not on anybody else's clock, and they resent him for that. But it wasn't different with Floyd Mayweather before Canelo, and it wasn't different with Oscar De La Hoya before Floyd Mayweather. It hasn't been different with any A-side fighter or any cash cow. That whatever altruistic fighter you're imagining stands apart from the history of boxing and stands apart from the actual A-side fighters and cash cows. Canelo's behavior is not dissimilar from the cash cows that came before him. So what do you expect? You don't get to this point so that you can do things on everybody else's terms. You fight to get to this point so they have to do things on yours. And that's the way it is. And if you don't like it, you should probably start watching another sport right now. Because long after Canelo Alvarez is gone and somebody else becomes the face of boxing, it's gonna be the same thing. Because that's the way it works. That's the way it is. Oh, the names and faces might change, but not that. You pay the cost to be the boss. You paid your dues. Canelo Alvarez paid his. You don't want to accept that, you don't have to, because you don't have the power to affect any change anyway. So if this bothers you, you should probably start watching something else. Suck it up, Buttercup. Elsewhere in the division, on the heels of his first professional loss, a maturing Jaime Munguia is relishing the prospect of entering his prime. I believe I'm entering my prime, he said. There's still much to learn and many things to improve, but I feel like I'm entering a great time in my career. I feel good at 168. I've adjusted very well. I feel very good making weight, and I have no problem. Making 160 and 154 took a lot of work for me. Right now, I'm doing well. The goal right now is to become a world champion again, but at 168. I'm very excited to return to Arizona. When I fought there in January against John Ryder, the people gave me a warm welcome. We had a full house in Phoenix, so I'm excited to go back. This is going to be Jaime Munguia's third fight of this year. He fought John Ryder in January, Canelo in May. Now he's fighting Armenian-Canadian Eric Bazinyan. 29 years old, undefeated. Eric Bazinyan is a good fighter, Munguia continued. He switches stances. We need to be careful with that. He's taller and has a longer reach than me. He has a good jab. He can punch well on the inside. He's a fighter who comes with all the desire to excel. Having had a look at him, Eric Bazinyan's actually quite big for 168 pounds, but he can move for a guy his size. Moves well, jabs well, sets up his punches well. Decent power, decent pop. For Eric Bazinyan, this Jaime Munguia fight is a step up in class. This fight is taking place on the Top Rank and ESPN side of things, which has given rise to a lot of conversations as to what the future of Jaime Munguia is. Is he going to be a Top Rank fighter moving forward? Because Oscar De La Hoya said that this is a one-and-done situation. This is a one-fight deal. But that doesn't make a lot of sense. Why would Jaime Munguia, the more well-known fighter, the A-side to an Eric Bazinyan, why would he be crossing over to Top Rank and ESPN for a fight with him? It should be the other way around. That if Jaime is still with Golden Boy, it should be Eric crossing over to Golden Boy, not Jaime crossing over to Top Rank. We'll see, because I still don't know. I look at Eric's size and his fundamentals, and I see a guy who might be able to give Jaime Munguia a solid fight with an intangible. We don't know what Eric can really take. But when the fists start to fly and punches start to get in, how much can Eric handle? How much can Eric take? Because we know what Jaime can take. Jaime was just in there for 36 minutes with Canelo Alvarez, and even though he got knocked down, he didn't get knocked out. But Jaime is more battle-tested than Eric Bazinyan, against a better grade of fighter than any fighter Eric has fought so far. Not exclusive to the Canelo Alvarez fight, he also fought John Ryder. He also fought Gabe Rosado, Sergey Tidivianchenko. That even if you don't think Jaime's quality of competition or resume so far is all that great, whatever it is, it's still better than what you get from Eric, than what you've seen from Eric. So many questions that need answers in reference to this fight. The future of Jaime Munguia, is he going to stay at Top Rank, and how some are interpreting this fight as a segue to a Christian Mabili fight. Christian Mabili, who's co-promoted by both Eye of the Tiger and Top Rank. That if Jaime beats this guy, they might move him into that fight. That's a good fight. If they make it. This may sound strange, but Jaime Munguia's fight with Canelo that he just had reminds me of the fight that Canelo had years ago with Floyd Mayweather. When Canelo fought Floyd, Floyd was exiting his prime. Kinda like how when Jaime fought Canelo, Canelo is exiting his prime. I see the trajectory of possible fights that are out there for Jaime Munguia. Some of these are really good fights with good fighters. And I see a guy that, if Canelo Alvarez were not at this weight right now, Jaime would be the money man. Jaime, a fight with him, would be the most sought after fight in the division because he has more marquee value than all these other guys, save Canelo Alvarez. He's got more marquee value than Eric Bazinyan, obviously. He's got more marquee value than Caleb Plant, than William Skull, than Christian Mabili, than Bektemir Melenkuziev, than Diego Pacheco, than Edgar Berlanga. I would say that the only guy at this weight that has more marquee value than Jaime, that's Canelo. So if and when Canelo Alvarez's time at 168 ends, and he either moves up to 175 or just moves on from the sport of boxing, Jaime Munguia may in effect become the heir apparent to this division, but he's got to stay winning. So how many of those fights at 168 do you think Jaime can win? One thing's for sure, he's got to win this one. He's got to win this Eric Bazinyan fight. The rest of Jaime Munguia's boxing career is on the other side of this Eric Bazinyan fight.